Phosphorus is a chemical element that can be found in water, soil, and sediments in a variety of compound forms, including the phosphate ion. Plant growth is often hampered by low phosphorus levels in soil. Phosphate fertilizers are commonly used on farmland because of this. Plant-eating animals and animals that eat plants absorb phosphates. Phosphorus is a nutrient that both animals and plants require. It is an essential component of energy-storing molecules such as ATP, adenosine triphosphate, DNA, and lipids, and it plays an important role in cell development. A lack of phosphorus in the soil can lead to lower crop yields. It can also travel through rocks, water, soil, sediments, and organisms in a cycle. The key steps in that cycle are: rain and weathering cause phosphate ions and other minerals to be released from rocks over time. This inorganic phosphate is then dispersed throughout the soil and water. Inorganic phosphate is taken up by plants from the soil. Animals may eat the plants after that. Phosphate is incorporated into organic molecules such as DNA once it reaches the plant or animal. When a plant or animal dies, it decomposes, releasing organic phosphate into the soil. Bacteria that break down organic matter to inorganic forms of phosphorus can make organic forms of phosphate available to plants in the soil. Mineralization is the term for this process. Phosphorus from the soil can end up in waterways and eventually the oceans. It can be incorporated into sediments over time once it reaches that location.
Phosphorus travels through rocks, water, soil, sediments, and organisms in a cycle. Rain and weathering cause phosphate ions and other minerals to be released from rocks throughout time. This organic phosphate is subsequently dispersed throughout the soil and water. Phosphorus enters the ocean by leaching and runoff, where it is absorbed in ocean water or ingested by marine life. Some phosphorus is deposited on the ocean floor as sediment. This silt may be able to return to land if rising happens. New sedimentary layers are formed as phosphorus-containing substances from the bodies or wastes of marine organisms fall to the ocean's floor.
Phosphorus is usually considered the limiting nutrient in aquatic ecosystems, meaning that the available quantity of this nutrient controls the pace at which algae and aquatic plants are produced. In appropriate quantities, phosphorus can be used by vegetation and soil microbes for normal growth. Much like phosphorus-based fertilizers boost the growth of plants on land, phosphorus in the ocean promotes the production of microbes and tiny marine plants called phytoplankton. Phytoplankton are the tiny plant-like producers of the plankton community. They include bacteria and algae that form the base of aquatic food webs. They generate half of the atmosphere's oxygen. Phytoplankton contain chlorophyll, which harnesses the sun's energy and converts carbon dioxide into compounds that form the tissue of their body. Oxygen is created as a byproduct of this process, which means that plankton aren't just an important food source for marine life and subsequently humans, but they also allow us to breathe.
Eutrophication is caused by a lot of things that people do. We call this anthropogenic effects. Using fertilizers like nitrates, which are often used without proper care and curing, is the most important thing that happens on a global level. This is because these fertilizers can end up in surface or groundwater because they leach and move from land in the fertilizers that were used. Agriculture causes a lot of eutrophication, which makes a lot of lakes, rivers, marshes, estuaries, and coastal areas more nutrient-rich. Eutrophication is also caused by cattle ranching in rural areas. Fertilizers are a good source of nutrients, especially those that are nitrogen-based. If they aren't properly taken care of, they can end up releasing waste into the nearby water. Similar to cattle, city pollution can cause eutrophication. In this case, it is important to note that detergents with phosphates, which are one of the nutrients that can cause eutrophication and harmful effects in the water, could be used.
Since eutrophication will also cause shortage of oxygen because of nutrient depletion caused by exponential growth, invasive species accustomed to oxygen shortage may appear. For example, the Daphne galeatea is an invasive species in Lake Constance that arrive only during eutrophication. Zebra mussel and quagga mussels could also be introduced, which are filter feeders. They filter out algae that native species might need for food. They are hard to remove and management of these invaders are expensive. In the Great Lakes, managing these mussels costs about $500 million annually. Once the population density of the invasive species exceeds the carrying capacity of the ecosystem, the species will destroy the native species. This will eventually deplete available oxygen and prevent the natural recovery process of native organisms. Eutrophication has been shown to interact and influence the strength of natural selection. For examples, cladocerans and copepods, which are algal grazing zooplanktons, have evidence that they adapt by changing their diet under eutrophic conditions. There is also the resurrected dormant eggs of the Daphnia galeatea from Lake Constance in Central Europe have shown to have evolved and have better resistance to the cyanobacteria, which are potentially toxic to them and are nutritionally poor. The invasion of Daphne galeatea in Lake Constance also hybridized with the local D. longispina to the point where the current population is dominated by genetically admixed organisms.